And because of the fundamentally collaborative nature of this work that Ann Coleman Weber was speaking about just before we reorganized, we felt it was very important to have a format that supported that view of studying the research problems that these folks are studying. So in the panel, we've asked each group to organize their work around a common theme. And you'll see in your program the four themes, if you will, that each panel is going to address. The panels were asked to organize their work around the theme and to really respond to the theme as a question. So if we look at the panel that we're about to hear, Researching English Teaching in the Context of Madrasahs, the question this panel is addressing is, what have they learned through their work about this topic of teaching English in the context of madrasahs? So this is going to be 3 individual views of responses to that question and connections between those responses as they speak. The panelists will introduce themselves briefly right now as we begin, and then we'll move to the format which Dr. Weber is going to facilitate in the first panel. So, do you want to introduce yourselves?
Right. Good morning, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Arif Rahman Hakim. I'm from UIN Fatmawati Soekarno Bengkulu. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Donald, for brief explanation about our research panel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dedi Rwansa. I am from EIN Metro, small city in Sumatra. It's about 1 hour from the central of the province. Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
I'm Witriani. I'm from UIN Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta. Thank you, Donald, and thank you, Essie, and thank you everyone for joining this conference.
Okay, thank you. So the topic of this panel, Researching English in the Context of Madrasahs, the first question we would like to ask is for each of you to tell us about your particular focus within this panel topic.
And I think talking about cultural, intercultural has also become one of the focus and the aims of RELO, and also the learning also how to adapt new cultures into English, and then here the teachers have to modify and adapt with the local one, including the Islamic values.
Thank you.
Okay.
Your focus, in particular your participants and your data.
All right. Related to the participant and the data from my research, I did interview, field observations, focus group discussion, and documentation to 25 English teachers who participated in English language teacher training in Bengkulu province. 15 of them are teachers with English language education degree, and 10 of them are non-English language education degree. So my research focus in here is to know the experience of the teachers when they participated in English language teacher training, and also how the program can give an impact after this program, and also in their practice in the classroom after the program.
I focus on the workshop modules and the training process as well, and interview 15 teachers and 5 trainers as well, because from different backgrounds, started 5 males and 15 females with a range of experience from 2 years until 20 years.
So I'd like to just check if there are any clarification questions before we move on to findings about the organization. organization of the
70% until 80% of the LTT method in the teaching learning process.
Can I just ask you what you mean by ELTT method in that slide?
The knowledge that they got from the LTT.
So the language that they got in English for teaching, or the pedagogy?
Yeah, about the pedagogic competence and how to managing the classroom and anything. Then most contextual topics from them are managing the classroom, understanding and communicating lesson contents and giving feedback. Actually, all of the topics that they got, or all of the method they got from the LTT are useful, but the most contextual topics for now, based on their answer, managing classroom and understanding communicating lesson content and giving feedback. Number 3, managing and handling the English classroom. So based on the interview to my participant, she said I can manage and give more instruction using English to handling my class. So that's the findings from my research.
Pesantren confirmed to have dual paths, namely teaching English and inculcating Islamic values. So they do not just teach English. Okay? And the second findings from the survey was that most students, according to the teachers, tend to learn Arabic only 56.3%, and the rest 43.8% tend to learn Arabic and English. And even though English is less popular than Arabic in madrasah and pesantren, but still English has a strong position, I guess. Urging one other to the truth. So this is interesting. So the dual task, it's really happening. And the third data source was that personal interview, in that I found that learning materials and student readiness are potential constraints for the teacher to implement their dual task. The materials are expected to include Islamic terms and Islamic phrases. And it is schools. It is still a unique selling point of the schools. And another finding shows that Arabic is seen as identity. So it is more than just foreign language to learn for the santri or the students of madrasah. While English still plays important role because English speaking is part of the school regulation. Most, if not all, pesantren would apply the bilingual environment, in that the student are supposed to speak either English or Arabic. And I think the last initial finding is also interesting. It is about the teacher language in the classroom. Most English teachers use English, Arabic, Indonesian, and regional language. They use English for the content and use Arabic for something like language variation. If they ask, do you understand? They also ask, Fahimtum? Okay? Just to connect English and Arabic. Okay? And it is also interesting that some English teachers are also Arabic teachers. Okay? Yeah. So Indonesian language is also used to elaborate, to give explanation for quite difficult English concepts, like when they teach grammar. And regional language is also used for the icebreaker, especially Japanese language. Okay? So what I can see from this finding is that this rich linguistic repertoire are seen as assets rather than constraint in Islamic schools in Indonesia. I think that's my initial.
How the teacher should adaptation and modify sometimes. Both, like probably like they have to modify the class with the Arabic and local tradition, something like this.
So let's go to the last slide. But what I think, just a comment, which is fascinating, is we know from lots of research on teaching in many, many contexts around the world that the main thing teachers do is to adapt or modify. And so you're seeing, in a sense, that process, but in the particular context of madrasahs and pasantrans. Is that fair?
And so to that point, we will hear your takeaways from the entire panel.
Okay, so this is my takeaway and also recommendation for the next program or the next research. My focus, my concern is about the teacher's qualification, English teacher's qualification and competences in madrasah pesantren in Indonesia, especially my case in Bengkulu province. What Pak Dedi found and also Bu Witri found, it's kind of similar with my findings. My participant, they teach English and also Arabic language, and sometimes they teach Islamic studies. So, and also their background is not coming from, all of them not coming from English education degree. So that's why I suggest English language teacher training and kind of like a certification program for madrasah and pesantren English teacher should be implemented more broadly to improve the teachers' competence or to upgrade, to help them help their competence and qualification, because it's going to be really important for the teachers personally and also the institution to upgrade their level, their quality. So I think that's my takeaway, my recommendation. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Pak Arif. Well, Bapak Ibu, I graduated from madrasah and I know that English is very well taught in madrasah and pesantren. But just English sometimes need to be contextualized. Okay? So I agree with Donald when he talks about specialized language or English for specific purpose. I'm thinking about Islamic specialized language, something like English for madrasah and pesantren. I think it is needed, I guess.
Actually, English teaching in the context of madrasah is challenging. It's not only about applying methods, what we have learned so far, with a lot of things, game and everything, but also dealing with, we have to deal with cultural consideration, like background, how to deal Islamic values, belief, curriculum, habits and everything, and then that's kind of how the teachers, it is necessary, how the teachers adapt with this condition and modify text and something, or probably, yeah, I agree with kind of, there is kind of Islamic specialist language, something like that, and then ada with this Indonesian culture, especially madrasah and pesantren. Thank you so much, I see.
To the audience.
It's very, I think it's been very useful research, and I think I had the experience of dealing with madrasah back in 2008, but as a senior generation, we're talking about history, and we did all over East Java, and I think the article was published in one of the publication, international publication. I will share with you later. My question, well, for all of you, in madrasah's context, how teachers, how English teachers learning are facilitated by the system?
Could I just clarify? By the system, you mean the system that
Yes,
you
the
work in?
system in the school
In the
as
school.
well
Okay.
as
Thank
the
you.
system under the Ministry of Religious Affairs.
So that's a big question and somewhat oblique to your actual data collection, but please comment.
Let me go first with a very interesting question. in pesantren we are told Nahnu Abna'ud Dalil, we speak with data. Okay? My research data shows that teachers talk about low salary. Okay? They don't even have when they do the online learning, ELPT, they don't have even have their own laptop. Okay? Their limited access to Wi-Fi, something like that. Okay? And I don't know where the problem is, but I think the salary, if you can call it as financial support from the school, is low, I guess. Yeah.
So that's influenced their motivation in learning.
Not really, because it is interesting because they believe that they often say pahalanya besar di surga.
They became English teachers at the first place, even though they don't have that background. And then, if they do have some backgrounds, do they also have backgrounds in Arabic? So, I mean, are there some Arabic teachers who don't have Arabic backgrounds and teach Arabic? So, and that's the first question. And the second question is, do you get some information from the participant about the school, the teachers' recruitment in their institutions? Whether or not it follows what Mora suggested or require, and the Ministry of Education and Culture requires as well.
So two questions, one about teachers' backgrounds, language backgrounds, and why they got into teaching English if it wasn't where they were trained, and also Arabic, is there a parallel situation? And then the second is, the question is about resources in school. Is that, did I understand?
Whether or not they follows the requirements of the ministry.
Oh, yes, whether it follows the guidelines, yes, thank you. Who would like to answer that one? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. Really appreciate it. Talking about the teacher's background qualification, it's a bit complicated sometimes, especially in madrasah and pesantren. We should talk about the budget of the school sometimes. Some of, like a modern school, madrasah, there's no problem with that. So all of the English teachers coming from English educational background, some of them have got a master degree of English. But when we talk or move to the pesantren, or we call it as traditional pesantren, or maybe we can call it as a small madrasah and pesantren, the first, they don't have enough budget to pay all of the teachers. So sometimes they just make some Arabic teachers or Islamic studies teachers who have like an English competency to teach English. Let's say they have a background before, like they active in English club when they were in pesantren, or madrasah before, or in their university before when they were students in university. So the schools will ask them to teach English, but based on the policy, it's not it's not good.
The good
Right? When we're talking about the accreditation of schools and many things, that's not right. Maybe I can say, when I was in students in Madrasah Sanawiyah, SMP, junior high school, I didn't pass national examination in English last time. I don't know, this is kind of because of that problem, because of the qualification or competency. I don't blame anyone last time, because I'm here now as a master trainer of English. Even I didn't pass the national examination of English last time. But now that's why I really recommend, based on my research, to do more English language teacher training or some kind of that, like English language teacher certification to help the teachers, because the fact is many English teachers in madrasah and pesantren don't have any, they have the competencies, but they don't have the qualification in teaching English. But the fact, they teach English. So that's my recommendation.
Just before we go to the second question, and I know we need to wind up, this very interesting question, would you say the situation is similar for teachers teaching Arabic, that sometimes they're asked to teach even though they are not trained in that area?
Yeah. I also found some of our English teachers, our participants, also teach Arabic.
Yes.
In the pesantren.
Yeah.
I think it's
Maybe
also
about three.
related with it is the human resources that they have, right? So kind of like in one of my madrasah, like Mbak Arik have visited before. Again, they are trying to scale to like kind of scaling up the madrasah into international program. So they train some of the teachers to teach English. And some of the teachers used to Arabic teachers, and they have to switch into English, and then so it's kind of challenging also.
Thank you. That's great.
So unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions, but our...
One more question?
Oh,
Yes.
oh, one more. I'm sorry.
Because they have to learn 3 languages or even more at the same time. And then given that the situation where they have to learn Arabic, English, Indonesian, and their native language, can we say that students or teachers in pesantren or madrasah apply what we call translanguaging pedagogy? To be honest, this is the concept that I just came across recently. I found it is interesting. Translanguaging pedagogy is the situation where teacher soften the language boundaries so that given the students to use the native language to understand and learn the new knowledge. That is the first question. Can we say that madrasah in Indonesia apply translanguaging pedagogy? And then if so, how is it possible to, let's say, propose a model of planned translanguaging pedagogy to improve the process of learning a foreign language in pesantren and madrasah? That's my questions. Thank you.
Classrooms become closer to what the world is and less what classrooms sometimes are.
Absolutely.
The second piece that is fascinating to me, and we've seen this in research that we started just before the COVID pandemic in India and had to stop because of the pandemic, also in Vietnam, was that, and I would say it's partly due to the model or the view of language in the English for Teaching course, which is, as I said, a language for specific purposes, as you were saying. That means that when you have a language for specific purposes, it is flexible. It has porous boundaries because you're focusing on how it's being used. You're not focusing on the language as a universe, but simply a particular set of uses. And maybe that's part of what you're seeing in the way that it feels more comfortable to, I can take this as a tool and use it in my work. So I do think we will have time to continue this in our, but I thank you for your question.
Thank you.